some exciting news that has come as far as a new vaccine is concerned. Sputnik V, which is a Russian vaccine, has now been peer-reviewed by the Lancet journal. The third phase trials of Sputnik V have now been peer-reviewed. Now, this is good news, as this raises a lot of hopes of India potentially getting its third vaccine. Do remember that Sputnik V is in a tie-up with Indian companies to provide this vaccine. So what exactly is the plan? Let me now go straight across to the man who will have all the questions. The CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund is now with us for an exclusive conversation. Now, just for the benefit of our viewers, the RDIF, or the Russian Direct Investment Fund, is Russia's sovereign wealth fund, which helps in collaborating and making this vaccine available. Mr. Kirill Dmitriev, thank you very much for joining us right here on NDTV. First of all, we've heard a lot, the latest news about Sputnik V, but we would like to hear it from you. What would you like to say?
So we have great news that Lancet, one of the top publications in the world, published phase 3 results of Sputnik V vaccine that showed efficacy of 91.6%, which is basically very high efficacy, and showed 100% protection against severe cases. And this is peer-reviewed data. There are only 4 vaccines in the world that published results of phase 3 interim results. And Sputnik V is only one of 3 vaccines in the world with efficacy of more than 90%. And not only efficacy of 90% is important, but also the fact that our vaccine, among vaccines with efficacy greater than 90%, can be stored at +2, +8 temperature versus -70 that is required for some mRNA vaccines. And also it's much more affordable than mRNA vaccines. So definitely great news, very important news, and validation of what Russia has been saying all along, that we have vaccine for humankind, one of the best vaccines in the world.
Yes, yes, Mr. Dmitriev, and congratulations, a great achievement. Now, I want to ask you this question, particularly of great interest in India. What are your plans of scaling up the production so that it's available?
Well, definitely, and that's why India is a great partner for Russia. And really, Sputnik V, as a Russian-Indian vaccine, as a big part will be manufactured in India. We have 5 manufacturing partners in India who are already producing the vaccine, and we will supply more than 700 million people doses, so 1.4 billion doses of Sputnik V vaccine this year. And we actually are willing to partner with vaccines who have efficacy less than 90%. So for example, AstraZeneca's vaccine has efficacy of 62.1%, and Serum Institute is producing this. We are now doing a clinical trial to help AstraZeneca increase the efficacy of their vaccine closer to 90% by giving them 1 shot of Sputnik. So we'll definitely be producing lots of our vaccine, including in India, but we're also going to be partnering with other vaccines who have efficacy less than 90% to help them increase their efficacy, and then it will mean that we will be producing some of these vaccines jointly.
Mr. Dmitriev, I'll come to this partnership point a little later, but let's talk about an extremely crucial point, particularly in the Indian context, the cost of your vaccine.
So the cost is less than $10 per shot, and jointly with AstraZeneca, we are 2 of the most affordable vaccines in the world. And that is very important because when we set up to develop Sputnik V, we wanted it to be a vaccine for the whole mankind. And it means it had to be safe, and we based it on a safe human adenoviral platform that has been studied for decades. We already saw the efficacy numbers, which are very high, and then we wanted to make sure it's affordable and can also be delivered easily in India and other countries using +2, +8 temperature. So we have a combination of all of this, and frankly, that puts Sputnik V on top of the vaccine list in terms of safety, efficacy, price, and delivery. It's really a vaccine for the mankind.
Now, Mr. Dmitriev, I know that there is a process in India for this vaccine to be rolled out, but do you have your mechanism in place, the necessary supply chain in place, the production capabilities in place. Would you like to tell us how soon can we expect that to happen, the rollout, once approved?
So we are working very closely with our great partner, Dr. Reddy's. And we already are doing phase 3 in India, and we will also be applying for emergency use authorization soon. Sputnik V is already authorized and registered in 16 countries around the world, including Europe, in Hungary, in Latin America, in Argentina, Bolivia, in Africa, in Middle East and United Arab Emirates, so in many nations. So we expect emergency approval to go through either this month or next month, and we'll be able to start deliveries of Sputnik V vaccine to India right after that.
Okay. No, Mr. Dmitriev, just for the benefit of our viewers, you're saying that your vaccine is going to apply for emergency use authorization to the drug controller in India either this month or next month. Is that how soon we can expect post-approval the vaccine to be available?
Well, I think we will apply either this month or March. Dr. Reddy will determine this timing. And as soon as this approval is granted, we will be willing to start supplying of our vaccine to India. This week, already 12 new countries started using Sputnik this week. And for 10 out of those 12 countries, it is the first vaccine that they have received. And going forward, we believe that vaccines with 90% efficacy will really be the vaccines for the people, because if you have vaccine with 90% efficacy, why would you use or who you would give vaccine with less of an efficacy? So that's why we'll be working with vaccines who have efficacy of 60% and lower efficacy like this to help them increase efficacy to 90% as we have.
Okay. Mr. Dmitriev, now we've seen whether it's Pfizer or AstraZeneca, you always have to take 2 jabs, right? Even in the case of Bharat Biotech. What has been, would you like to tell for the benefit of our viewers whether one would need 1 jab of the Sputnik V or 2 jabs, the efficacy details?
So our Sputnik vaccine is also 2 shots, 21 days apart, and this is vaccines that will give more than 90% efficacy. We will also introduce in March a vaccine that is just 1 shot, and it will have efficacy of close to 80%. So even this 1 shot we have will be higher by efficacy than some of the existing vaccines. And then we'll have 2 products. One is this 1 shot that will have a little bit less of a duration of vaccination and less of an efficacy, and our typical 2-dose regimen, which gives more than 90% efficacy. And based on the circumstances, I think, and based on the age, countries will be able to choose which vaccine and for what age group they would like to use.
Sure, but then as a company, Mr. Dmitriev, are you looking at Sputnik to be the main vaccine, the vaccine?
Sputnik V is our main vaccine, and we will be also producing it in India and supplying it to many other markets. And as I mentioned, India is really our core partner. India has built a great production hub for vaccines, and that's why many manufacturers want to produce in India. So we'll be supplying Sputnik V to Indian people with Dr. Reddy, as well as we'll be exporting Sputnik V from India to many other nations around the world.
No, that's great. But what I was meaning to ask is because in one of your answers earlier, I heard you saying that this is going to be the vaccine for the people. So are you looking at the correct price and the right amount of doses for Sputnik V to become the main vaccine and not say, the ones that have already got emergency use approval?
Well, again, we advocate the concept of portfolio of vaccines. I think not one vaccine can really be the only solution. We definitely believe our vaccine is the best, given safety, efficacy, price, and logistics, but we cannot supply the whole market, all of the countries. So basically, India is doing exactly right to have different vaccines that can be provided. And as I mentioned, we are happy to work with vaccines of efficacy less than 90%, to give them one of our shots to help them with efficacy. But going forward, I believe in 2, 3, 4 months, most countries will try to focus on vaccines that have 90% efficacy, because how do you justify giving somebody 60% vaccine with efficacy if you have a 90% efficacy vaccine as well.
I agree with that, Mr. Kirill, but you've mentioned this repeatedly through the course of the interview, and I have to ask you this now. You seem to suggest that the vaccines be mixed, which means that there is a jab of another vaccine and then it be topped up with your vaccine, which has reportedly greater efficacy. How exactly will this be done, and what's the study behind this?
That is a mistake. So we officially starting clinical trial with AstraZeneca together, and we will start them in Azerbaijan and UAE, and we have agreement in AstraZeneca to test exactly this. We believe if we use one AstraZeneca component, one Sputnik component, this will increase the efficacy of AstraZeneca
government
vaccine.
says don't mix.
And this will start a clinical trial, and of course we'll share the results of clinical trial. But we do believe, particularly in light of mutations, that combining vaccines is important, and combining vaccines will have better results than for some of the low efficacy vaccine. If you have a 62.1% efficacy that Serum Institute has for the vaccine based on the Lancet publication, of course it makes sense to explore how you can increase efficacy if you add a Sputnik shot, which has more than 90% efficacy.
No, my final question, Mr. Dmitriev, each and every government representative that we at NDTV have spoken to have said, do not mix the vaccines. If you've gone for Covaxin, then make sure the 2 jabs are from Covaxin. One from Covishield, the other also has to be from Covishield. Certificates are being issued. So naturally, a question that is going to occur to the minds of everyone who's listening to you is this mixing of vaccine that you're talking about. Is it safe? The concerns of safety.
Well, and we'll do clinical trials, but of course we believe it's similar technology. It's based on adenoviral vectors, and we believe that those technologies, particularly the ones that we use based on human adenovirus, are very safe and has been proven to be safe over decades. And this is why we are also starting clinical trials jointly with AstraZeneca, and they have confirmed those, and we will start them as soon as next week.
Sure. All right. Kirill Dmitriev, CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, Russia's sovereign wealth fund. Thank you very much for joining us right here on NDTV.